Welcome everyone, Joe with DCRM here at our vitamin and supplement session in Chicago. And with me is Brooks Powell from Cheers, who spoke yesterday and gave a masterclass on omnichannel marketing and how 1+1 really is 3 when you leverage marketing and distribution the right way. So we're going to dive into the specifics of all that. But before we do, tell everybody a little bit about Cheers.
So Cheers is a brand of dietary supplements that is primarily directed for alcohol use. So this right here is our after alcohol aid. You just take 3 capsules after your last alcoholic beverage or before going to bed to support your liver and feel better the next day. This is our after alcohol aid. We also have a next morning aid, which you can take the morning after drinking. So right after drinking before bed, next morning when you wake up. And then this year in 2026, we are pushing our Cheers Protect product, which is a daily liver support, and you take it daily to boost your glutathione levels and support your liver so that it's in tip-top shape for just general life, but drinking alcohol as well.
Gotcha. So you have before, during, during, after, and long term.
That's right. We got all of your bases covered. Most people start with the after alcohol aid, and then they start going for the next morning aid. This is kind of like Batman. This is Robin. And then this one is rapidly expanding for us. This is almost $1 million a month for us, and we started pushing it about 3 months ago.
Oh, wow. Oh, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So yesterday, again, the presentation was awesome. You talked about a few things related to ACV threshold gaps and why it's important to go, full throttle until you pass that level.
That's right.
But before we get into that, talk a little bit. Some people watching may be very new.
Yeah.
So can you just tell everybody what an ACV is
Yes.
and how that is calculated?
So ACV stands for all commodity value or all commodity volume. Either way it works. What ACV means is, I always try to explain it to people that don't know what ACV is use a hypothetical situation. So let's say in the entire United States, there was only 2 retail locations. And each one of these retail locations sells $1 million each. So retail location A, $1 million, retail location B, $1 million. Well, if you sold in one of those retail locations, such as retail location A, then you would have 50% ACV because you're getting exposed to 50% of the all commodity volume. However, let's say retail location A was a convenience store and sold $1 million a year, but retail location B was a Costco, which does over $250 million a year. Well, if you sold in retail location A, then you would have less than 1% ACV. But if you sold in retail location B, then you'd have over 99% ACV. So what ACV is really measuring is that, hey, a Costco is going to be selling, 250 times what a convenience store sells. So you can't weigh those evenly. So at the end of the day, ACV is basically measuring how much exposure you have to a market. So if you have 10% ACV, then you have 10% exposure to that market.
Okay, so now how does this fit in with marketing, both e-commerce and brick and mortar, in the context of what you're doing?
Yeah. So what I like to explain it as is so marketing is your water, and all of your points of distribution, your distribution, and your ACV, that is going to be your surface area. And so what happens is if you have a very low ACV, but you're doing a lot of marketing, then you're basically sending all of this water in and you're not having much surface area to catch that marketing. And so a lot of your marketing ends up being wasted because someone hears the message, they go, oh, I want to purchase Cheers, but because they're not constantly getting the chance to purchase Cheers, they hear about Cheers, then they forget about Cheers, and then a lot of your marketing goes to waste. However, if you were something like Coca-Cola, for example, Coca-Cola has 100% ACV everywhere, something like, 200 million retail locations or something across the globe. I actually showed a slide yesterday that shows that you can buy Coca-Cola both at a hospital when you're dying, and you can buy it when you're already dead at a funeral home. So literally, when you see an ad or hear an ad for Coca-Cola, it immediately you have a chance to purchase it. And so none of their marketing dollars go to waste. So what I do is I call this the ACV threshold gap. So threshold is how much you have to sell in a retailer before you get kicked out. ACV is ultimately going to be the measure of how efficient your marketing can be because you can recoup it. So early in a brand's life cycle, you end up getting into this situation where you have to spend a lot of money. I don't know if you'll be able to see that.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you hold that?
Yep.
So early on in a brand's life cycle, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to get over threshold. But the problem is, because you don't have much ACV, you're not going to be profitable. And therefore, you're going to end up you're not going to lose your retail distribution, but you're going to go bankrupt. So that's not good. The alternative is you don't spend enough on marketing. And what's going to happen is you will be profitable and you won't go bankrupt, but you're going to lose your retail distribution. And that's not good. So basically, the ACV threshold gap is essentially pointing out that it is a race to get above threshold, but have enough ACV that you're not losing money on your marketing spend. And then you want to grow essentially in this. You want to move your way up and to the right in this sort of sliver right here.
So how does Cheers do it? And you do a lot of online marketing, right?
That's right. So we're mostly Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Last year, we spent just shy of $10 million across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We spent about $9.5 million. By the end of the year, we were actually doing over $1 million a month. And then this year, we'll spend over $15 million. And we're hoping to drive about $45 million of revenue. And we've been on this rapid growth rate of 75% year-over-year growth. So we went 8 million in 2023, 15 million in 2024, 26 million in 2025, and then this year we're shooting for 45 million. And so there's really two ways to think about getting into brick and mortar retail. The smart way to do it, especially if you don't have a ton of capital, is to do a regional rollout. So for example, Cheers is from Houston, Texas. That would be like us getting into HEB in just the retailers that are local to Texas, so that we could concentrate our marketing just in the state of Texas. We don't market in the other 49 states. And then that allows us to get over that threshold because we're not spreading our marketing over the whole US and not sort of capturing it in that surface area. Also, you're going to get incremental learnings. You can sort of learn iteratively. You can make mistakes without it being cataclysmic. What happened at Cheers is we ended up getting into a national retailer right off the bat. And so once we got into that national retailer, the sales right out of the gate, this was back in early 2023, the sales out of the gate were not good. Like we were well below the threshold that the retailer had given us as a goal.
Danger of getting pulled out.
Yeah, so essentially a big gun got placed to our head and it says you need to grow your brand by like 5x in you need to grow your sales at this account by like 5x in like 1 year or you're going to get kicked out. So that immediately we went from spending $1 million a year in marketing to that year we spent $4.6 million in marketing. So we spent $4.6 million in 2024 based on the way sort of the years worked and everything. It ended up working out for us, and we were able to show that growth story, and the merchant kept us in, and now we're well above threshold at that account. But what we didn't realize is when you get into a national retailer, how hard it is to stay in a national retailer because of that ACV threshold gap. And so what we learned very quickly is that we have to scale our marketing and our ACV as quick as humanly possible, or else we're at risk of losing that national retail distribution. So when people ask, Brooks, what's your retail strategy? It was a little like that movie that came out. I think it came out in like 2022 or 2023, right as we're going through this. And I remember seeing the movie titles, and the movie title was Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And I was like, that could basically sum up our marketing and retail strategy.
So now how does the brick and mortar play off with the marketing, right? Because the more stores you're in, that's kind of acting like a billboard too. So that's having some marketing impact.
That's right. So what we have found, there's always this big belief. So I talk with a lot of brands, and there's always this thought, okay, you're selling on your website, you're selling on Amazon. When you start launching into a retailer, once you start launching into that retailer, is it going to cannibalize, like eat your online sales? So that's always the concern. What we have found is that it's always the opposite, that basically you're selling one in e-commerce and you're selling one in your brick and mortar, but the net effect ends up being 3. So it's literally basically your e-com brand awareness and what you're doing to support your e-com business ends up supporting your brick and mortar business. And then your brick and mortar business, it's like little billboards on the shelf, ends up supporting your e-commerce business. And that's the beauty of Omnichannel, that 1 + 1 = 3. I'll actually give one more example here. We're not yet like fully into the club channel. We've been doing some tests in the club channel, and club is always cheaper than every other retailer, right? So you would think that the second you get in club, it's going to hurt all of your other retail sales. It's going to hurt your Amazon sales. It's going to hurt your website sales. Most of the brands that I've talked to, in fact, I've never talked with a brand that says that when we got into this club retailer, either club retailer X or club retailer Y, that it ended up hurting their sales elsewhere. Instead, it actually increased their sales everywhere, despite the fact club is so much cheaper than all of the other channels.
It's kind of counterintuitive.
Very
but
counterintuitive.
It works. And you mentioned that retail and brand scaling flywheel.
Yes.
So that's what this is, right?
Yeah. So basically, the brand scaling flywheel, and this comes back to my concept of the ACV threshold gap, is that the more ACV you get, the more efficient your marketing is going to be. The more efficient your marketing is, the more you can then spend on marketing without losing money. The more you spend on marketing, the more likely more retailers are to bring your product in, expand you within that, or help you bring in more SKUs. Then that gives you more ACV, which then allows you to have more efficient marketing, spend more on marketing, which gets you more ACV. And that's how you go from 0% ACV all the way up to 100% ACV over the course of a brand's lifetime.
And then eventually in hospitals and funeral homes.
Eventually Cheers will be in hospitals and funeral homes, yes.
So for an emerging brand, right? Someone who doesn't have millions a week to spend on marketing, would you recommend the more regional approach that you talked about?
There's two ways to do it. I would say, so the way Cheers did it is we were already at about $8 million in revenue before we started pursuing brick and mortar retail. So when we were at $8 million in revenue, and we were profitable, when we were at $8 million of e-com sales through our website and Amazon and profitable, retail was a nice to have, but it's not like if we would have lost that distribution, we would have gone bankrupt because we had this really healthy e-commerce business that was underpinning our overall retail strategies. If you need retail to actually exist, to like pay yourself salary and feed your family, then you should definitely go the low and slow and regional approach. That way, you don't have this giant gun pressed to your head that basically says grow faster, die. So those would be the two ways I would do it. If you're just starting out, you're doing, less than 10 million, really less than 5 million or less than 1 million, and you're trying to use brick and mortar to initially scale your business, then I would go the regional route. If you already have a very healthy, strong e-commerce business that's, say, 10 million plus, and you have the capital and the appetite, and you are willing to essentially get on the death march, as I like to call it, if you're willing to get on that death march, then I think you can launch in national retailers. But just know that when you launch in a national retailer, they're expecting you to grow really fast, hit those thresholds. And it's not like they're greedy or something. They just have to make sure that what products are on their shelf is actually selling and it's driving their category averages up rather than dragging their category averages down.
Gotcha. And there's something good about putting constraints on yourself, whether they're big or gun to your head. It kind of focuses you.
I do not think Cheers would be on such a rapid growth trajectory if we didn't accidentally launch into national retail before we were ready. And it's a little bit like the old burn the boats type
you had
thing.
No choice.
And when you have no choice, you figure it out.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is how, by the way, I've been an entrepreneur now for 12 years. I started in college, never worked a real job in my life. Granted, I work a lot, so I guess it is a real job. I believe that life and business is a situation of purposely getting yourself into uncomfortable situations. And you can either grow because you want to or grow because you need to. And I can tell you it's a whole lot easier to grow when you need to and have to than just when you want to. Because no one wants to put themselves into an uncomfortable situation. But if you accidentally get yourself into a high pressure, high stakes, uncomfortable situation, humans figure it out. They'll figure out how to grow. And honestly, if you want to really grow personally, professionally, and spiritually, get yourself into some tight spots and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. One more question. We talked a lot about paid advertising, but where does organic content fit in? How does it fit into this whole thing?
Yeah, so let's go back all the way to like Instagram 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you could make organic Instagram work. Well, what ends up happening with all social media platforms is they start free and organic. And then over about the course of 10 years, they eventually become completely inorganic and 100% paid. So for example, if you post on Instagram, so this is Cheers. If we post on Instagram, it may organically get 1,000 views. all of Instagram and Facebook at this point is paid.
Yeah.
TikTok is early. It's kind of like
Mhm.
3 years into that 10-year cycle. So 2 years ago, TikTok was TikTok 1.0. There was almost no paid, and it was all organic.
Mhm.
So brands could just keep going viral on
Yeah.
TikTok left and right, and it was like, oh my gosh, look at this! It's like free money.
Mhm.
They have no marketing expense. All they have to do is make cool videos. Well, we're now already in TikTok either 2.0 or 3.0,
Mhm.
and organic is still definitely a thing. If you post videos, they'll go viral and all of it. But we're already finding that about on a really viral video, maybe 2 million of that's going to be organic. Like 2
Mhm.
million views is going to be organic, but 2 million is going to be paid. And the paid actually helps influence the organic. So we're already at a channel that's more like 50% organic, 50% paid, and the paid ends up juicing the organic. But if we just follow the trends out,
Mhm.
if TikTok goes the way that Facebook and Instagram goes, and it will go this way, by the time we get out of the roaring 20s, by the time we're at 2030, I think it's going to be like Instagram where it's almost 100% paid.
Gotcha. But the organic content kind of helps you figure out which pieces to support, right?
The playbook is exactly
Yeah.
the same. Good content is good content.
Yeah.
And so, in a platform's early life cycle, yes, good content will just get free distribution. But even crappy content does not scale.
Yeah.
So if you have crappy content and you put it on Facebook and Instagram, it's literally not going to have the ROI.
Yeah.
So good content's good content. Good content scales, whether that's organic or paid. You have to create really good content.
Awesome. Last question. Love the suit. Tell us about the new suits.
So I started off wearing crazy polos,
Mhm.
and those were sort of a big hit. And then I got to a point where I actually had over 100 crazy polos, primarily from 3 brands: Sunday Swagger, Chubbies, and Bad Birdie. I love Chubbies. Sunday Swagger actually got to a point where we became really good friends with their management team, and they shipped me like 50. So I still wear around the office. I'm usually wearing Sunday Swagger shirts. But for events like this, at some point, everyone has to grow up and be a professional. So I decided to start wearing these suits. The suits are from Lilly Pulitzer. I currently own 5 of them, all different patterns. They're releasing about 5 per year, and they're always limited time drops. So when they drop, they only make so much inventory, and you have to buy it right away. But our brand pillars are science, fun, and defying aging. And so if you follow us on TikTok, you'll always see us wearing these very colorful shirts, or I'm wearing these colorful suits. If you see us at trade shows, the whole team is wearing Lilly Pulitzer gear, or Sunday Swagger gear, or Chubby's gear. And we just like to have a lot of fun. We sell alcohol supplements. Drinking alcohol, you can drink alcohol responsibly, but it is to help you have a good time. So why wouldn't we sort of lift the brand in that way?
Yeah, well, it's definitely consistent with the brand. So, well, listen, thank you so much for joining us and for the great presentation yesterday.
Well, we love ECRM. We've built our business through these ECRMs. In one way or another, we can pretty much tie the vast majority of our retail distribution back to ECRM in some way. I will say, for us, we're vitamins. So we attend both of the vitamin ECRM shows. We also attend other shows like Expo West and NACDS TSE and NACDS Annual. And what I would say is that all of the shows work together. So you should definitely do ECRM, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't also do the shows, because we may meet a retailer at ECRM, but close the deal somewhere else. Or we'll meet another retailer at Expo West, but then close the deal at ECRM. And so we call it the trade show tour, and it's incredibly important to do the ECRM stops on the trade show tour.
Awesome. Well, it creates that flywheel again.
That's right.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Joe.